quick little recording from our lecture today, week 13, Friday, all about the web banners. In your announcement section, there are two templates. One is the animation template, 800 by 600, and the other one is the ad template. We're actually going to create, in essence, two web banners. One that is 800 by 800, a little bit bigger. That is our static layout. So I placed in the required elements inside of our ad template.psd file that you need for your beverage web banner creation. You'll notice there is a headline, there is support copy, there is a product image, there is a animal or person layer, there is a button layer, there is a social media tag layer, there is a background layer, and there is a texture layer. These are all required for your two PSD files. Now, just as a quick recap, as you import layers in and replace my layers, you can get rid of them. So if I go into, let me go into my Chrome. I'm going to open up a new window. So let's just say I wanted the Fiji background to be a little bit different. So I'm going to switch out my Fiji background. I'm going to go over to my tools, make sure that it's a large picture, and then you're going to get all these little beautiful pictures of Fiji. This is a really nice one here. I'm going to save it to my desktop. Now, when I open up that image inside Photoshop, here it is. I'm going to do select all, Command A, Command C, and then I'm going to go into my ad template. I'm going to scroll down to my background image, and I'm going to do Control V. Now, remember, I'm going to hide the other layer. That's my original background image, just so that you can see it. Now, remember that if your image comes in and it's a little too small, that we can control click on the layer and we can make it a smart object, right? If we make it a smart object, we can now scale this thing up and it'll keep kind of its quality. So just remember, the smart object is a way to scale things up and keep the resolution a little bit better. So now I can get rid of this layer, which is my original background layer, because I replaced it with the new background layer. And everyone was doing perfectly fine bringing in their elements into their ad template file for their beverage, right? So you're going to replace this with yours. You're going to change the text here, change the color so that it fits yours a little bit better. Now, when you create the ad template.psd, you've got a couple of options. You can go over to your layers palette here and click on your layer and control click it, and you can duplicate your layer over to the animation template. So watch what happens. If I duplicate my layer and I go over to the animation template, here it is, right? This is a different resolution, so it's a little bit smaller. But I could go in here now, right, and duplicate my layer and move that layer down to the bottom. So I'll just drag it down here, move it down to the bottom, and then you can get rid of my layer. So you can duplicate your layers from your ad template PSD and choose the animation template file, and you can just move your layers over one at a time. The other thing you can also do, if you feel comfortable, is you can go into image size, right? So this one's really big. I made this image really big for you guys. We could change this to 800 by 600. Now, the trick with that is, see, when I change the width to 800, it makes 533. We actually have to make the height 600, which will make this 900. So I'm going to click OK. And so here is my image smaller now. And if I go to image canvas size, I could actually change the width to 800. And so now this is the proportion of this. So if you don't feel comfortable making the image adjustment, the canvas adjustment, and then doing a file save as and naming it animation as your Photoshop file, you can duplicate your layers from your add layer by control clicking on here and doing duplicate layer and duplicating it over to your animation template. So just duplicating them. If you do Command A, Command C, remember that you have to do it for each layer in order to paste it over into your animation template. Now, once you have your files into your animation template, remember you need to turn on your timeline and turn on your frame animation. That's what we did in class, which will then give us our little timeline thumbnail. And if you click on this little timeline thumbnail, here is our animation. So remember, once we have our timeline turned on and we tell this file that it's an animation, each of our little animations are in here. So I'm going to do transform, and then I'm going to move it to 2 seconds and click transform again, and I'm going to move it across the page. So remember, that is how we do our animation. So if I want to move the button, I go in and do my greater than symbol, make sure that my timeline tracker is at 0, drop a position, which means I can move it off the page, and then maybe at 3 seconds, I can drop a position and I can move it back over, right? So I need to move this thing back over. Let's make sure that we grab it. It keeps grabbing my lizard, so I need to lock my lizard layer. My lizard keeps getting in the way of my button. So let's go back to my button layer, which is right there. So there it is, right? So here is my button layer. So here it is. I'm just going to nudge it over so you can see it over here. And so there it is, right? I'm just going to nudge it, nudge it, nudge it, nudge it, nudge it, just so that you can see. I'm going to move it over towards the Fiji words. Now remember, I have my keyframe selected right here. So now it starts off the page and it comes on the page. And so now if I click on my headline, I'm going to hit the less than symbol. I'm going to go to my headline. I'm going to scroll down. And this time maybe I'll scroll my ticker back to 0. I'm going to do opacity. And then I'm going to scroll over to 2 seconds. And I'm going to do opacity. So now if I go back to my first keyframe, I can make the opacity 0. And so now it fades in. So remember, the keyframes are down here. So your homework is to create your static web banner of a beverage of your choice, and then duplicate or copy those layers over to my animation template and animate them with a frame by frame animation. And remember, we zoomed in down here so we could see it. And now here is our timeline tracker. So let's animate your bottle in and animate your headline and maybe bring your button in. Get a little movement going inside of your banner. This will be due Monday night. So you have Monday time on campus if you need to come to the lab or need to work on it a little bit. And for the athletes that are out of town that don't have access to the computers, you'll have Monday when you get back to work on our animated banners. Good job today in class, gang. Have a great weekend. Remember, Monday we're going to do our final project client selection so that when we come back from Thanksgiving, we'll have our Monday, Wednesday, and Friday class to build the pieces of our final project. Good job, gang.